Again, I'm so sorry for being dumb or naive. I'm a venture capitalist for a living. You should be used to us by now. Is this replacing prime spending? Is this net additional? How should we think about this? And is this just the sign that Anduril is now another prime?
Yeah. It basically means that we have enough business with the federal government to justify putting together what is a fairly sophisticated contracting vehicle. So yeah, the short version of it is like, yeah, the government thinks that we can deliver some pretty major stuff now and in the future. It took a lot of work by a lot of people on the government side to actually make this thing happen. They are not going to do that unless they think that it's worth it.
What do they spend with like a Lockheed or a Northrop for like comparison?
So Lockheed, I think, is in the like 100 billion revenue a year. I think we'll do a couple billion in revenue this year. So we're still, small in the grand scheme of things.
When you look at the software and the hardware element, how do you guys sit internally? Are you a hardware company? Are you a software company? Are you a services company?
There's a lot of ways to look at it.
How do you?
So I think one of the things we've done maybe uniquely is we've given our customers a lot of ways to access our company. So what I mean by that is we've been very creative in, okay, a customer wants a piece of software, but it's difficult in government to contract for software. And so we can wrap it in a hardware appliance, right? Or they want a piece of hardware, but they know the software is the sophisticated piece of it. And so they're willing to pay more for it because of that sophistication. Or in government, you get these weird things where money it's called the color of money. So money is obligated to certain types of spend. So maybe a customer only has money that they can spend on services. Well, okay, can I do an as-a-service product? And actually, one of our first major contracts was with U.S. Special Forces for all of their counter UAS systems. That started as an as-a-service contract where they weren't buying hardware, they weren't buying software. They were literally buying a service that obligated us to defend certain sites from certain types of threats. And as long as we were meeting the KPIs on the contract, we were fulfilling the obligations of the agreement. So quite novel. And that contract has, since gone in a lot of different directions, and we do a lot of different things on it. Not just that, but we have been kind of dogged in our approach to this, like basically realizing that the more ways we give our customers to get at us, the better it's going to go.
What's the hardest thing about working with the government when you look at the structures that you have to contort yourself in to get a deal done? What's the hardest thing? I've interviewed Shyam, who I presume you work with from Palantir days.
Yeah. I worked for Shyam for a really long time. He's a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
There's a lot of answers to this question, but maybe from my lens, it is how few and far between the large wins are and how hard it is in between those periods of time. So if you look at our business, this year, we'll do a couple billion in revenue. We'll do 600 separate contracts this year. Only 20 of those are probably of material revenue size. I think the hardest thing is like, what happens in between the 20? And what are you doing to position yourself for the 21st? And because it's so concentrated, every single one of those deals is considered risk to the business, right? If it goes right, if it goes wrong. So
why specifically is it hard in between? Is that morale? Is that revenue predictability? Is that, what is it that's hard in between?
The government can sometimes tell you where they want you to go, but oftentimes they don't. And so a lot of this is trying to predict an unpredictable system, right? So how many lenses can you look at sort of the next couple of years? I can look at it through what the government is saying, through their rhetoric and through their budgeting. I can look at it through a warfighting lens and what general officers are saying and what military theorists are saying. I can look at it through a technology lens, like what technologies do I think are going to influence the battlefield in the future. And I need to kind of blend all of that together today to make decisions on what I want to build that will be available, 5 to 7 years from now. No one is saying today, this is what I need 5 to 7 years. from now, it's all sort of a educated guessing game over time.
What did you not do that with the benefit of hindsight you wish you had done? And what did you learn?
There's been a couple of areas that, have kind of emerged that maybe we were a bit slow in that we would have accelerated. I'll give you an example. There's a huge movement in, not just in the US, but NATO and the rest of the allies, into offensive cyber warfare. And you're seeing this now becoming public for the first time, which is really, really interesting. To date, this has been one of the spookiest of all spooky things, right? Like something that just no one ever talks about. And now you're literally seeing public officials talking about it for the first time. We should have moved into that 7 years ago and been the first in it. We weren't big enough probably to really even understand it 7 years ago, but like in hindsight, it was kind of obvious. We'll probably try and play some catch up here and get into the game. But, there's a couple of examples like that where you see these things kind of thematically in hindsight. And you're like, well, obviously 5 years ago, I should have done it, right? And you only realize that today.
What is the fear with offensive cyber when we look at like the worst case scenario, just so I understand it?
Well, it's a lot of things. So it's both what are our adversaries doing and do we understand it? And are they asymmetrically influencing battlefield tactics? And the answer is yes, they are. And then it's, okay, well, if our capability...
Sorry, can I just stop that again before I get lost in your next statement? What does it mean, like asymmetrically influencing battlefield tactics?
Yep. So for a very, one version to think about this is just cost. For a very low cost, they can create an effect that has major implications for us, NATO, and our allies. That's asymmetric. So often people refer to terrorism as an asymmetric tactic, right? For a minimal set of people.
But this would be like a $10,000 drone that hits a $1 million.
Drone warfare is an asymmetric battlefield tactic, exactly. And cyber being not only asymmetric, but you'll often hear the term non-kinetic associated with it. So I'm asymmetric, as in I'm cheaper and more nimble, and I can get a large effect. But I'm also non-kinetic. And why is that so dangerous? Well, when something explodes, we react to it, and we react to it with the full force of the military. When things are kind of simmering beneath the surface in sort of a Cold War-ish type of a way, it actually becomes really hard to react. And so in cyber warfare in particular, if assets are affected that we care about, well, can we do attribution? Do we know where it came from? How do we respond? Do you respond with a non-kinetic attack by going kinetic? Is that an escalation of force? How is that perceived by the global community, right? So you get into all of these really challenging doctrinal positions because of just how sort of unexplored offensive cyber is. And then on the flip side, right, it's like, do we have the ability to amass cyber effects on our own, right? Because what you would want to do is you would want to do tit for tat. You wouldn't want to do, for the most part, a set of like escalatory decisions. You would want to, match force with force. Do we have the ability to amass the same kind of force non-kinetically, right? So all of these are super important questions that, in my opinion, to date, have not been debated publicly and absolutely need to be.
Can I ask you, what cyber assets do we care about versus not care about?
What do we care about protecting, or what do we care about affecting?
Both, actually, if that's okay.
Well, yeah, well, protecting, right? Probably the main one is like the list of critical industries. The military is included on that list. But think about infrastructure, think about power, think about energy, think about all these things, right?
Okay, so it's like a foreign adversary impacting energy supplies in large cities, or water supplies, or
for sure,
healthcare data, or financial systems, I guess.
Yep. But even now, though, on the battlefield, it's a foreign adversary impacting our military systems, such that we can either not mount an offense or we can not successfully defend ourselves.
Okay. Got you. And so that's the cyber assets that matter on the defense side. On the kind of offense side, do we think the same in terms of proactive?
Everything that they would do, we would do too. Yeah, exactly. That's the way to think about it.
Is there any part of you that's like Northrop or Lockheed have $100 billion spend? With the greatest of respects, we have a $20 billion spend. We're nowhere in offensive cyber. Fuck it. Let's not try and catch up. Let's progress. No, I mean, in a nice way, you can laugh at me, and maybe I'm going to get killed for this, but I don't really care. Let's just accelerate where we're doing great. Yeah. Like, why bother catching up when you're 7 years
let's
behind?
talk about just our strategy as a whole. So when we started the company, we knew we had to go really wide, really quickly, right? Because to the point of what do other defense companies or newer founders getting wrong? It's that addressable market question. So in every technology class in defense, there's probably one, sometimes two actual programs that if you capture them, you have a business, and if you don't, you have no business. So take small drones as an example. There are very few drone programs for small drones that would create a material enough amount of revenue to actually create a real business, right? And so you're basically shooting the moon. You have to create a monopoly. We knew that. And so what we did is we created a bunch of fundamental technologies that are applicable to a lot of different types of problems. If you read about us, this is called Lattice in a lot of our published literature. It's fundamental tech that allows you to consume data, make sense of it, and then manipulate robots, basically. That's what it is. Those technologies apply to tons of different things. And so we have 20 different P&Ls at the company, all that are going after different parts of the defense apparatus that take a lot of these fundamental technologies that we build and kind of piece them together in different ways. And so
just so I understand, so it's kind of like a horizontal foundational technology that you then verticalize and specialize.
Yeah. Lattice is a software platform. Exactly. I can talk about software platforms with you. It's hard to actually talk about software platforms with a lot of people because it's if you don't actually understand what we're talking about, it gets a bit weird. But yeah, Lattice is basically just a software platform that we can branch from. And it's led us into all of these interesting places. So as a really crazy example, the first product we built was a sensing tower that just allowed us to automatically, through a bunch of computer vision technologies. And this was, by the way, pre cool AI. This was old school CV AI in 2017. Just allowed you to spot threats at distance, right? But automatically without a person having to look at a screen. There are pieces of that technology that are resident in our autonomous jet fighter today, right? Not all of it, right? There's been a lot of advancements since then, but there are code blocks, right, that are shared in common between all of our pieces of technology. That becomes pretty magical when you approach whatever the next problem is, because you've already got pieces of it solved. Gives us a head start, allows us to get to market at usually reduced cost, usually a better schedule, kind of hitting all of the performance characteristics that our customers care about. So back to the actual question on cyber, right? So why go after it? We kind of have to go wide, and we have to believe that we have parts of the problem already solved with the platform in order to even approach a market. We wouldn't get into a market if we didn't think we already had applicable technology or a technology tailwind. But where we do, we're definitely going to go after it.
What you said was fascinating to me. You were basically, you have to assume a monopoly market if you want to build a big enough company for drones. Why the fuck are there so many drone companies then?
Yeah. I don't know.
I've seen so many, 30, 40 in Europe, just European ones.
Yeah. There'll be one that wins, right? It's going to be really hard to pick it, I think, is the problem. But there will definitely be one winner. I think the challenge for investors is actually figuring out which one it is.
So we should invest in, offensive cyber and defensive cyber. How do we think next then? You're CBO, you're president. Are you great, we should put $1 billion against it and build that out as a separate business unit? No, please tell me where I'm prying too much. Right? What's the subsequent thought to that?
Yeah, so the way that we do this is when we have a new idea, we basically start a really small tiger team that we generally piece together from various parts of the business. And we kind of match our own internal motivation and spend, our own IRAD, to what the market is whispering to us. So in government, what this generally looks like is you piece together some tech really, really quickly so that you have a demonstrator or at least a dart to throw. And then you start to pulse the market and you see how close was that dart throw to what the customer actually cares about, how they think about the problem. Do you modify it? Were you totally off and you just need to scrap it and start over again? And I think in government, uniquely, you know you have something when the customer's excitement starts to match your own. And all of a sudden, you're kind of walking down a path together as opposed to this weird like vendor-customer relationship. That's always how we kind of identify that we're onto something. I would say all of these things can be characterized by like a singular champion on the other side of the table that gets it, that believes in it, that wants to shepherd it. Actually, you mentioned Sham. He talks a lot about this kind of like heroism. Like it actually comes down to a single person in government a lot of times.